Welcome to today's episode of Speakers Corner. I'm Gail Rubin, your host for this half hour of conversation with members of the National Speakers Association New Mexico Chapter. And I am so thrilled to be having a conversation today with Ben Shaw.
Thank you, Gail.
Ben, you are one of our newest members of the New Mexico chapter.
Very new, yes.
Yes.
Several weeks.
But you are a professional speaker.
Yes, ma'am.
And your area of expertise is tattoo advocacy.
Yes. I am a speaker for the tattoo industry. As I mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of tattoo artists that like to stand up and speak because it's more of a one-on-one type scenario, so there's definitely a need for myself to stand up and kind of represent my industry.
So let's get a little background.
Yeah.
When did you get your first tattoo?
If my mom watches this, I'll probably get in trouble, but I was 12 years old when I got my first tattoo.
12 years old?
Yeah, it was at a friend's house, done improperly and unsafely. And it's one of those I've learned from my mistakes kind of thing. And I'll be honest, she actually did find it. But she did give me a deal. If I would abstain from getting any more of these home-done tattoos, she would sign for me to get a professional tattoo on my 16th birthday.
Ooh.
So on my 16th birthday, my mom, stepfather, and I all got professional tattoos at CeeLo's Tattoo and Body Piercing in Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so I've been hooked since.
So, dare I ask, how much of your body is covered with tattoos?
Sure. The majority of the anterior, the front of my body, I do have calf tattoos, but the back piece and the glutes and the hamstrings are still awaiting some ink, which I'll be starting in October.
Oh, boy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and your head design is quite remarkable.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, I just got it done this past year. I had been wanting to get my head tattooed for a long time, and as I'll get into, being involved with state regulations and government, I couldn't quite cross that barrier, and so this was my reward for completing it. And as we had made note, the Celtic designs are from my ancestry, being Celts and Vikings.
So when we have somebody who wants to get a tattoo, what kind of research do you suggest they do?
Well, that's a very subjective question, obviously. There's now a lot of people collecting tattoos. Actually, half of the American population have a tattoo.
I was going to say, I see a lot of people with tattoos.
Yeah, there's 46%, actually.
Wow.
And from little tattoos to big tattoos to being heavily covered. So luckily, with the introduction of tattoos on television, people are becoming more equipped with the proper techniques to find the artist that's going to do the type of work they want. They're doing more research. So if they want to do a little tiny ankle tattoo with their friends on the weekend, they would go to a specific shop, or if they want to come and get a massive tattoo, they would seek out someone like myself. Mm-hmm. And so from there, we do consultations and kind of go through that whole process.
So, I mean, there are different themes that somebody might pursue, or colors, or lack of colors.
Exactly. There's several different types of themes or categories of tattooing. There's the immediate color, or black and gray, or hybrid. There's traditional tattoos, the heart and the mom and the sailor, the anchor kind of thing. Then there's neo-traditional tattoos, which is a little more stylized version of that. You have Japanese-style tattoos, which is heavily influenced American tattooing. Very bold colors and
like anime?
No, more of like the traditional dragons and koi fish and phoenix with their typical elemental background. Typically very bold, colorful, and simple. Usually fits well on large-scale tattoos. And then you have like black and gray realism, portrait work, things that are a replication of a photo and such. And then you can get into watercolor and stipple, and then there's all kinds of other hybrids from there. So there's a ton.
So when did you start doing tattoos?
So when I was 12, I made a little machine at home, and I messed my friends up pretty good, but I didn't do it too much. And when I mentioned getting tattooed by CeeLo when I was 16, I actually inquired about an apprenticeship that young. But this was a time before the internet, before the access to equipment and information was readily available, so it was very guarded. So I was basically told to, in a nice way, kick bricks. And so I had attempted to seek an apprenticeship until I eventually ran into the family trade, enlisting in the military. And because I didn't have an occupation, I was told to go off to the Air Force. But when I was in the military, I was still designing tattoos, I was getting tattoos, and then as soon as I got out, I through the planets aligning properly, I found the right person that was going to teach me how to tattoo. So I started when I was 20 years old, and that was 22 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you worked for others, and then you started your own studio?
Correct. I started in California in a town called Lompoc, Euphoric Body Art. I tattooed there for 4 years, and then moved to Albuquerque in 2004, worked at a shop called Tinta Cantina on Central. And after that is when I actually partnered up and opened Archetype Tattoo back in 2010.
Okay. And now as a speaker about tattoos, what do you speak about?
Right.
And who do you speak to?
Good question. So at this point, right, because of the growing number of people who are interested in tattoos, it's all demographics. I mean, there's not a single demographic that's isolated. Although I had my first dentist a couple of weeks ago, which is unusual. But I typically speak to the industry because I have a strength in regulation. Back in 2013, I got involved with body art regulation through the New Mexico regulation, the licensing department. But at that time, we were being managed and directed by barbers and cosmetologists. I was the only tattoo artist on the board. Seeing that was a problem, went through the 2015 legislative session, and we lobbied Senate Bill 275 to create the Board of Body Art Practitioners, which then I became the chairman for, and worked with regulations, learned all the jargon, learned all the ins and outs of regulation, which in my industry is something that we try to stay away from. Traditionally, the tattoo industry was coming from more fringe society, and regulation and honestly being involved with the state in any form or fashion was something that completely repelled them. So, but now that it's a growing industry, it's a billion-dollar industry, obviously tons of people are getting them, there's issues arising from it, so the need for regulation. And so I stepped in and learned the jargon, learned the techniques, and started conveying this complex information to my peers. So I became a bit of a specialist when it came to regulation. So I do talk to them about not that we need it or that how to install it, but actually just how to navigate it and how to build communities around it to honestly protect ourselves from over-regulation, because that can be an issue. Simultaneously, because so many people are interested in tattoos and the taboo is definitely changing, but there's still like a level of unsureness with tattooing. So I try to share the history of tattooing with as many people as hear me. I try to share the benefits, the wisdom that's gained from getting tattooed, the therapeutic purposes, the health purposes. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yes. Well, tattoos are...
I thought they just hurt.
Oh, well, they hurt. But pain is... it's traditionally thought of something bad, but when you're being tattooed, you have to override that fight or flight response. Right? You want to get away from it, but you have to sit there and take it. So then you're this cascade of adrenaline and endorphins go through your body, but you're sitting still, and you're accepting this pain that's going on with inside you, and you have to learn how to deal with it. And then you have to trust this person that's doing it to you. And the experience is one of a kind, and it's one of those... I've been called a therapist on many different times because it does open people up. It's somatic treatments where people have a lot of pain trapped in their body can actually be released through tattoos. And so it may seem as if it's a scary, traumatic experience, but some people have found profound changes in them from it. Yeah.
Wow. I have to admit, I have no tattoos.
Fix that.
But And I have heard it's addictive.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we do put heroin in the ink, and so, no. As I just mentioned, that whole experience, which again is something you have to do to find out about. It is once it's no longer that scary, daunting, painful thing, and you realize it is a deep transformative experience that also adds to your body, and it's a way of self-expression. Oh yeah, it's so addictive. You start to see, oh, I have this here, I have this space over here now, and I could. And I trust me. I think one skull you'd end up with like 20 of them.
I know, it's like people think, surely you're the doyen of death. You must have a skull tattoo somewhere.
Yeah.
Not yet. So we've actually met before joining the National Speakers Association New Mexico chapter in Toastmasters.
Yep.
And there is a difference. I think Toastmasters, especially the club that I'm in, Albuquerque Challenge, provides the opportunity to practice our speeches and polish the material, whereas NSA, New Mexico, is more about the business of speaking. And you are new to the organization, but what are you hoping to get out of it?
Well, just like you said, learn the business of public speaking. It's an unknown craft that I'm sure there's a lot of experience that NSA can help me with to navigate on how to promote myself and price myself. And again, as I'm learning that I need to ask a lot more questions. So it's just been great to be able to communicate with other professional speakers because they're giving me insights that are really helping me, navigate this new venture. So just hoping to gain as much knowledge as possible.
And that is one of the great things about the National Speakers Association, both here in New Mexico and on the national level, that these are people who make their living speaking, which a lot of people are afraid to get up and do, I think, as you mentioned. But the members of this organization are willing to share their knowledge about how you run your business as a speaker and ways to be a better speaker. And we
awesome.
do have a number of great programs coming up during this year, and being on this program is one of those benefits for our members. So,
cool.
Just very, very quickly before we take our break, and you're going to give us a little taste of what you speak about. We had put down something about the 2015 legislative session that was here in New Mexico. Was that significant for the tattoo business?
As I mentioned just a little bit ago, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Went through the 2015 legislative session to create the Board of Body Art Practitioners. So it's a board specifically managing and monitoring tattooing, body piercing, and permanent cosmetics. So before that, it wasn't optimally regulated, but this is a board dedicated specifically to it to really have our interests in mind.
Now, if somebody wants to get a tattoo or any kind of permanent decoration, is there like a certification to look for in that shop?
Good question, yes. We have licenses, a professional license that's a body art practitioner license, which anyone that is a professional should have an up-to-date and current body art practitioner license posted in a conspicuous place upon entry.
How do you get that? What do you have to do to earn that?
Good question. So it depends on if you're moving here or if you're starting here. You have to go through an apprenticeship, which is another licensure. You have to obtain a sponsor, get an apprentice license, go through 1,400 hours of training, and afterwards you would go and take a national exam, and at that point you would receive a license. So,
okay.
Just a little bit.
Well, I think we're ready to hear what you have to say as a professional speaker on the art of tattooing and the business of tattooing.
Yes.
So we're going to take a quick break so we can transition over to the stage and look forward to hearing from Ben Shaw about the tattoo business. We'll be right back.
struggle with imposter syndrome? As a tattoo artist, no matter how many awards you've won, followers you have, or money you make, you just don't feel like you're a part of the conversation. Or maybe is your work-life balance out of whack? I mean, I get it. It's tough trying to manage your life and your clientele. Or maybe you want to get your artwork critiqued, but it's really difficult to find that authentic critique, that authentic feedback you need. After 22 years, I've still been dealing with these issues, or was. And it's unfortunate because we participate in one of the oldest forms of self-expression. Actually, tattooing has existed since before written history. Archaeologists have discovered tattoos as old as 5,400 years old, carbon-dated bodies from 3,300 BCE. The first discovery of tattoos was on a Pete Bog mummy, and he had over 60 tattoos on his body, and they were in places of acupuncture, leading researchers to believe that tattooing must have been even older if it was already being used for therapeutic purposes. You see, as tattoo artists, we descend from tribal leaders, elders, shamans, and healers, protecting and guiding their people through putting symbols on their body. And it has existed throughout history ever since. We can find them on ancient Egyptian mumming women with nets tattooed across their abdomen, believed to protect their children during pregnancy. And we've all seen those National Geographic videos of those Samoans getting those sticks stabbed in their body, getting those tattoos from their knees all the way to their nipples. But we tend to forget about our ancient European ancestors, the Saxons, Danes, and Norse, collecting their tattoos upon traveling the world. Even during the Crusades, knights were to have crosses tattooed on their hands to ensure a Christian burial. And there was even some royalty with tattoos. King Edward VII and his sons, King George V and Prince Albert, all had tattoos. During the turn of the century, an article was written by the New York World Historical Society stating that over 3/4 of the wealthy New York socialite women were tattooed. And they would pay prices upwards to a fine dress. But this was during a time, at this point, when our warriors were starting to come home from World War I and World War II, wearing badges of honor and survival, coming back from battle. But this was in a time before veteran affairs, so post-traumatic stress syndrome was just an idea. It was actually, no research was done. And many of these veterans were just told to suck it up, soldier, and go back to life. So they would have to find ways and communities to come together to deal with these stresses and anxieties. So they found themselves in some clubs and even founding some predominant bike clubs like Hell's Angels. So then you have this iconic image of these tattooed bikers all hanging around a tattoo shop, rough and tumble. And I mean, it wasn't uncommon for tattoo shops back in the day, in the early 1900s, to have bouncers to kind of keep the riffraff down. So this made tattooers quite rough and tumble. And again, this was a time when business, marketing, and management was not really a thing in this industry. So when tattoo artists dealt with their competition, they dealt with their competition. This really hurt our ability to communicate with each other and share information. It really closed us off from each other, and we walled up all of our information and techniques, and we didn't grow. This scarcity mentality set root into our industry. But that didn't stop the popularity of tattooing. It continued to grow and grow and grow and grow till today, where nearly half of Americans have at least one tattoo. Actually, a recent IBIS World Poll found that 46% of Americans have at least one tattoo. I mean, that's over 150 billion people. And the same poll found that we generated last year alone over $1.7 billion. I mean, we are tattooing every demographic now. Of course, military and law enforcement, fire department, but lawyers, doctors, surgeons, even politicians. And with this growing number of people collecting tattoos, there's a lot of people who want to do tattoos. But they run into that scarcity mentality wall that I was just mentioning. There's no way for them to gain the information, the proper information they need, so they're trying to find it any way they can. So they're going to YouTube, eBay, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. Anybody can buy tattoo equipment today and then mess up their friends tomorrow. And I'm not talking about just bad-looking tattoos. I'm talking about scarring and infection. A tattoo is an injection of ink molecules into the dermis. It's a minor topical surgery. And this has had some unintended circumstances. where the tattoo industry is starting to become overregulated and regulated improperly by outside entities, to the point where it doesn't even make sense the way they're trying to regulate us. So back in 2015, my local community got together and realized we need to do something about this. So we went through the legislative session and lobbied and pushed Senate Bill 275 to create the Board of Body Art Practitioners, which eventually I was appointed to sit on and then became the chairman for. And I was able to work with my community to create regulations that made sense for us. But working within state politics, I think I'd be preaching to the choir when I say it's pretty corrupt. And there's a lot of self-interested parties. So there was a lot of battling on that front. But because I was involved with regulation, I mean, in my industry, regulation's a dirty word. It conjures up feelings and sensations of agitation, frustration, and confusion. And because there wasn't a great way for us to come together and communicate about this stuff, I was labeled by my peers the tattoo police. I'm over here protecting our livelihood and fight against these self-interested parties, and yet I'm still being labeled something that I had nothing to do with. It was very disheartening. I felt like an island. But then something amazing happened. I had a conversation with an amazing person. CEO and founder of Tattoo Smart, Russ Abbott, was telling me about this platform called Launchpad. This is a space where vetted professionals come to have open, honest, and authentic communications about everything I just talked about. Imposter syndrome, work-life balance, critiques, tech reviews, even regulation. And it is here that I have felt valued. I have been sought out for my skills. I have been appreciated, and I've actually just been able to help people from across the country with the skill set I have here. I've even met my business coach, Dr. Jeremy Miller, helping me get my work-life balance in order. And even financial advisor Ryan Roy is putting me on the path to financial freedom that I've always wanted. Because tattooing isn't just about making tattoos. It's a whole picture. And if one thing is out of balance, it could affect the entire process. It could affect the tattoo. And it could definitely hinder the experience of the client. Because we know when somebody's getting tattooed, they have to override that fight or flight response. It hurts. You want to get away from it. But instead, you have to sit there and accept the pain being inflicted upon you. And you have to trust the person doing it. So the relationship between a tattoo artist and a tattooee is an intimate bond built on trust and acceptance. And the words that we say to our clients will penetrate way deeper than any other situation. And as on Launchpad, I've discovered the 12th Man campaign, which is actually helping educate tattoo artists on early discussions about depression and suicide. Who knows? The advice, the link we share, the attentive ear we gave that client could have saved their life. And now with the explosion of tattooing, I mean, we as an industry are tattooing millions of people per day. That's millions of lives per day we could benefit. But we can't do that unless we're whole, unless we're complete. And we need that community. We need that peer group to support us. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran tattoo artist, a business owner, or even a brand new tattoo artist. It is here you can connect with peers, thought leaders, and mentors to help make your career whole. You're not an imposter. You have value. We want to hear your experiences, your ideas, your thoughts, your concerns. It is together we can propel our career and our industry forward. Expect to be accepted. So come aboard and join me on Launchpad.
Yay! Thank you so much, Ben. That was amazing. So check out Ben Shaw at benshawtattoos.com, also benshawspeaker.com, that's coming. And do check out the National Speakers Association New Mexico Chapter, NSA-NM.org. We have monthly meetings, both in person and online events. Sometimes we have several meetings over the course of the month where you can learn how to be a better speaker and the business of speaking. And we welcome new members who want to check out how to do this. So Thanks for joining us on today's episode of NSA New Mexico Speakers Corner, and we'll see you next time.